Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So this episode I'm calling Israel, U.S. State Department are Holocaust-Washing, the genocide of and land theft from Palestinians. So this is a immediate reaction to Anthony Blinken, a Jewish American, and the Secretary of State for the United States, so the Chief Foreign Policy Officer of the United States, and as standing next to Benjamin Netanyahu, and just now as Israel is bombing Gaza, uttering genocidal rhetoric from high officials of the Israeli government about Gazans and about actual actions they're taking and they have taken to supposedly try to recover hostages and punish Hamas, but in inflicting collective punishment and essentially what's called ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. I don't like the word ethnic cleansing. It sounds like the people that are being removed are dirty. So I call it land theft. And I think the language of robbery and theft and criminality is important in this area. So it's not only in this conflict that I think the words ethnic cleansing are wrong. But anyway, I think it's even though it's used as a supposedly the worst possible thing, it sounds, the actual words don't communicate that. So I'm trying to, eliminationism is probably another, a better word than ethnic cleansing. But anyway, so the speech that Blinken gave next to Benjamin Netanyahu was filled with pious references to Blinken's own family history. On one side, fleeing pogroms in the, he's on both sides. He has Jewish parents and grandparents and so forth and so on. But on one side, they were fleeing pogroms in Russia and in the late 19th, early 20th century, and then his other side of his family, his in-laws, some of them were killed in the Holocaust. So anyway, he made reference to these things, and this is not a novelty. This is not something new. It's a little bit new in the sense that this is a very high official of the United States government using reference to the Holocaust, particularly his family's experience in it, to what I'm calling Holocaust wash, the genocide or land theft from the Palestinians, and also a war crime, the collective punishment of, so Holocaust washing, a war crime, an enormous war crime that is ongoing right now. And so there can be this is morally absolutely abhorrent. As a Jew with some family members who were killed in the Holocaust, I find it, extremely frightening, morally abhorrent, politically extremely short-sighted, and wrong in so many ways. Though it is, Blinken can be, even though this is somewhat of a novelty to have such a high official make reference to the Holocaust experiences of his family, but also to use it in the context in Israel, where part of the warp and woof of Israeli politics is reference to the Holocaust, that Israel would not really have been founded without the Holocaust occurring, and the European powers, acknowledging that they had allowed this to happen, and that they needed some place for Jews to feel safe, and so forth and so on. And the Zionist movement had already been active in the Levant, and for a number of decades before the Second World War. But anyway, so this Holocaust washing is weaved into Israeli politics or certainly the background assumptions in terms of a sense of aggrievement, and also right now immediately the attacks of Hamas did evoke also in me fears of this sort of targeted annihilation, targeted killing for being who you are, intentional killing, intentional humiliation, and destruction. Now, it's my understanding that there's some range of that not all of the Hamas militants were so brutal as these, but there was a wide range, or there was enough of a range, and there was enough of a plan, and it's written in Hamas's, statements of purpose and so forth and so on, to obliterate the state of Israel, and and not caring, or if there's genocide involved in that. So anyway, so this, I think Israelis have more of a visceral sense of this, as that they constantly are experiencing rocket attacks and so forth and so on, but it's also part of the mythology of the state, and anyway, so but anyway, this effort but to me, none of this justifies the morally, ethically, the theft of land from Palestinians, certainly any more than has already happened. I don't know if a totally just and fair division of that land can ever occur, but it's definitely extremely unjust right now and extremely one-sided. And if you look at maps of the progression, you see how that has occurred, and some of that is based on this assumption of a fundamental antagonism, and also a lack of acknowledgement of the formative expropriation, theft, robberies, violence involved in the founding of Israel in the first place. And also, it was not easy with the idea of this people going there, and sort of there were people who arrived. It wasn't a very hospitable greeting, at least in terms of the actual political emergence of Israel, and also lots of Arab nations, the surrounding nations thought antagonistically about. So there was a time of military attacks from outside of the borders of Israel and the Levant and Palestine. So anyway, so there was clearly built into it a antagonism there. So that antagonism is not something that's going to go away anytime soon. But using the Holocaust as the justification for further criminality and by Israel, and by to further oppress Palestinians is wrong, and it's not justified. And as I just made a video, it's not advisable from a military point of view, and anyway, so it totally undermines any moral authority that Jews have in Israel, or almost most Jews in the world. So one needs to, I would prefer to be somewhat in harmony with people in Israel and Israelis in terms of our fundamental orientation toward the world and so forth and so on. But if your idea of the lessons of the Holocaust is that you steal from the Palestinians their land, and you also oppress them, and you kill them, and you and you use the mythos of the ancient Israel and the Bible and so forth and so on to make claims on it, I have no. It undermines the existence of Jews in the world as they now exist, and it will always create this terrible conflict that will lead to more death and bloodshed, and hatred, and stir up hatred. So I have no illusions that a new orientation all of a sudden will melt people's hearts and make people whatever come together or do things in a political, legal way rather than in a military and criminal or violent way. But anyway, using, I am personally against using the Holocaust. The lesson of the Holocaust means that you repeat the genocide. You just push it off onto another people that had nothing to do with the Holocaust and also European Christian persecution of the Jews. In fact, you might know that before the foundation of the state of Israel, it was generally it was generally easier for Jews to integrate in Muslim countries than it was in Christian Europe or Christian-dominated Europe. So, not to say that world is going to come back. It's been torn apart by not only the foundation of Israel but subsequent Israeli policy and the sense of entitlement that Israelis have had in dominating, and with the help of the United States. So the United States has, beside this incident of Holocaust washing, we just have, and using that among other things as, so one of the things that bothers me, and I should probably do an episode about this, what's so cloying to me, so not just a Jewish man like Mr. Blinken, but Joe Biden, for instance, made a speech about being so touched and moved by Holocaust, stories of the Holocaust, and how his father told him about the Holocaust and how terrible it was, which is fine if it were done not as a justification for visiting another Holocaust on the Palestinians, a different kind, or another genocide, if you don't want to use the word Holocaust for another event other than the one that happened between 1941 and 1945 in Europe. So, but anyway, for me, when I hear politicians like Joe Biden, who's non-Jewish, and you have other politicians or media figures like Lawrence O'Donnell, so forth and so on, there's a certain sense of, I am proving my liberality, my sensitivity to oppression and to hatred by making reference to the Holocaust. And that is being this touchstone of sensitivity and of tenderheartedness and compassion and those qualities of the human being, or potentially positive quality. So I don't want that event to be used that way in general. So it doesn't feel good to me for that. It feels like philo-Semitism, which to me is in a way a cover for anti-Semitism, or a kind of a reaction formation to anti-Semitism, where people have an exaggerated, and this is something that's a problem also in Western Europe. Certainly in governments there, they hold up their relationship with the apartheid state of Israel as being this wonderful, and partly it rests on their history, their collaboration with the Nazi genocide, the Holocaust, so forth and so on, and they want to show that they've changed, so forth and so on. But it's also, it's kind of, to me, pious cover for an aggressive stance toward both Muslim people in living in those countries and living in the United States. More of an issue in Europe, but also in the United States, and then just more generally a cover for imperialism. Okay, and the West, the European domination of the world, where Israel, and then so this theater of showing that you're sensitive to other people and to oppression, and you remember, so forth and so on, that I don't want to be the object for people like that. If you have the interest in it, and it's something that you have a genuine interest in, sure, I mean, that's great. I'm not opposed to that, but but you also, that it's not like this touchstone sort of I guess moral narcissism is one of my bugbears. But anyway, that it's kind of this and I've encountered that on and off throughout many decades in different forms. It's not but in other words, so it's possible to be interested and concerned about the persecution of the Jews and anti-Semitism and so forth and so on as a non-Jew, and at the same time also to see it as an example of other forms of racism and prejudice and ethno-nationalism, or stigmatization of other peoples. And even though it's sui generis in some ways, but it's still in that class of things, and to understand it as an entry point to those, including hatred of Muslims, and then also Israel's wrong turn, okay, or the wrong turn, whatever, however that this will be resolved, somehow figuring out how we can get equitable cohabitation in Israel-Palestine. It's possible, and I think it requires, among other things, economic development in that area, or broadly shared economic development, not just concentrated in the Jewish community of Israel, but and also and a way to, among other things, rebuild from the damages of war. But anyway, so this I just think that the usage of the Holocaust is something that it should be referred to, and it's something that you don't want to repeat, and you want to learn from it, and you want to learn the lessons from it, but not use it as a talisman of your personal sensitivity and only confine those lessons to Jewish people. In other words, saying it's only about this, and that also is, I think, creating a creepy form of anti-Semitism, internalized anti-Semitism by Jews, that somehow they are special, that we're specially persecuted. And, I mean, there are, as I say, there are, unique properties of the Jewish relationship to Christian-dominated Europe and so forth and so on, and also North America. that make it somewhat a different quality. You're both weak and strong. You don't really, it's hard to see who you are sometimes, because Jews look they're variety. So it's hard to know who you are. It's not skin color necessarily. But anyway, I think it's internalized anti-Semitism of a weird kind and of an unnoticed kind for people to see the lessons of the persecution of Jews as being only the property of Jews and only their special. It's a specialness, then in a way an inherent property. And I frankly want to see our society and the world culture evolve away from that. Okay, and there's a possibility that it could. But, there are many people who have investment in exactly using this tool to further their interests, their military interests, their global domination interests, or just their own stoking their own hatred of Arabs, Muslims, or other groups that are not Jewish, if they're whatever, or or by proxy, or Christian people using it as a way to also launder their racism and ethno-nationalism, like talking about Christian Zionism, so forth and so on. So anyway, I hope this video has provided you some insights or interesting ideas, and please share your thoughts in the comments below. Please like the video if you found it interesting or helpful. Please subscribe to Politics 2100, and look forward to seeing you in the next video.